The mysterious arrival. The small alien outpost, nestled on the edge of the galaxy, was a peaceful place. It was a quiet station, run by a few dozen aliens from different species, all united by their mission to watch over this distant part of space. The outpost was equipped with advanced sensors, designed to detect any approaching ships, but it had been years since anything of interest had appeared on their screens. Life here was routine, almost boring, as the crew carried out their daily tasks, maintaining the station and monitoring the empty void of space. But on this day, everything changed. It began with a faint blip on the outpost's sensors. At first, the crew thought it was a glitch. The sensors had been acting up lately, and a few false alarms had been triggered. But this time, the blip didn't disappear. It grew stronger, more defined, as something enormous approached from the darkness of space. The crew, curious but not yet alarmed, gathered around the main screen, watching as the object drew closer. As the blip became clearer, the outpost's chief officer, a seasoned veteran named Zikar, ordered a full scan. The results were shocking. The object was a ship, but not like any ship they had ever seen. It was massive, easily dwarfing the largest vessels known to the galaxy. The ship was shaped like a predator, its dark, metallic hull covered in strange, glowing symbols. It looked ancient, but there was something about it that felt alive, as if the ship itself was a living, breathing creature. Zikar's scales tingled with unease as he stared at the readings. This ship, whatever it was, had come from deep space, far beyond the explored regions of the galaxy. No known species had the technology to build something of this size and power. It was a monster, a titan of the stars, and it was heading straight for their outpost. The crew began to panic. The ship's energy readings were off the charts, far exceeding anything they had ever encountered. It had weapons, too, powerful enough to destroy entire fleets. The outpost was defenseless against something like this. Zikar knew they had to act quickly. "Send a distress signal to the Galactic Council," Zikar ordered, his voice steady despite the growing fear in his chest. "Tell them we have an unknown ship approaching, and it's like nothing we've ever seen before." The crew hurried to comply, their hands trembling as they transmitted the signal. They knew the council would respond, but they also knew it would take time for help to arrive. The ship was already too close, and there was no telling what its intentions were. As the massive vessel loomed closer, the outpost's sensors began picking up more details. The ship was covered in scars, deep gashes in its hull that spoke of countless battles fought and won. Yet, despite the damage, the ship radiated power and menace. It was a warrior, forged in the fires of unknown wars, and it was heading straight for them. Zikar could feel the tension in the control room rising. The crew members exchanged worried glances, whispering among themselves. Some thought the ship might be abandoned, a derelict drifting through space. Others feared it was a warship, sent by a hostile species to conquer their outpost. But Zikar wasn't so sure. There was something about the ship, something that didn't fit with the idea of it being abandoned or a mindless weapon. It moved with purpose, slowly but deliberately, as if it was surveying the outpost, deciding what to do next. Suddenly, the outpost's communication systems crackled to life. A message was coming through, but it was unlike any message they had ever received. The language was unknown, a series of deep, rumbling tones that reverberated through the station. The crew tried to decode it, but the translation software struggled to make sense of the alien speech. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the message became clear. It was a single word, repeated over and over again: human. The word sent chills down Zikar's spine. He had heard rumors of a new species, humans, who had recently been discovered in the far reaches of space. They were said to be powerful, resourceful, and incredibly dangerous. But no one knew much about them, and certainly no one had ever encountered one of their ships. Now it seemed that had changed. As the human ship drew nearer, the outpost crew could see it in more detail. The hull was a patchwork of different materials, some of which were completely unknown to them. The ship seemed to pulse with energy, a dark and ominous glow that made the surrounding space feel colder. It was clear that this ship was not just a vessel. It was a statement, a warning to anyone who dared to challenge the beings who built it. Zekar knew they were out of time. The ship would be within firing range in minutes. He ordered the crew to power down the outpost's weapons, hoping to show that they meant no harm. It was a gamble, but he knew they couldn't possibly defend themselves against such a behemoth. As the crew waited in tense silence, the ship finally came to a stop, hovering just outside the outpost's perimeter. For a moment, everything was still. The crew held their breath, wondering if this was the end. Then, the ship sent another message. This time, the words were clear, spoken in a language that was eerily similar to the one used by the Galactic Council. "We come in peace." The message was simple, but it carried immense weight. Zekar felt a surge of relief, but it was tempered by caution. The humans claimed to be peaceful, but the ship's appearance told a different story. They had to tread carefully. "Open a channel," Zekar ordered. "Let's see what these humans have to say." As the communication link was established, the crew braced themselves for what was to come. They had made first contact with humanity's monster ship, and whatever happened next would change the galaxy forever. The unexpected invitation. The Galactic Council's flagship, Unity, was a marvel of technology. Sleek and sophisticated, it represented the unity of dozens of species who had come together to maintain peace across the galaxy. It was here that decisions affecting millions were made, and it was here that the Council had gathered in an emergency session to discuss the arrival of the human ship. The Council chamber buzzed with anxious energy. Representatives from countless species filled the room, their faces reflecting a mix of curiosity, fear, and confusion. The news of the human ship's arrival had spread quickly, and now everyone wanted to know more about these mysterious beings who had come from the depths of space. In the center of the chamber, a large holographic display showed the image of the human ship, captured by the outpost's sensors. The ship loomed ominously on the screen, its dark, scarred hull making it look more like a beast than a vessel. The sight of it sent shivers down the spines of even the most experienced diplomats. "We have received a message from the humans," announced High Chancellor Varric, the leader of the Galactic Council. His voice echoed through the chamber, commanding attention. Varric was a tall, regal figure with silver scales that shimmered in the light. His deep, authoritative voice carried the weight of centuries of leadership. The room fell silent as everyone leaned in to hear the message. The tension was palpable. This was the first direct communication from the humans, and no one knew what to expect. Varric activated the communication, and the words echoed through the chamber. "We come in peace." There was a moment of stunned silence. The words were simple, but they carried an immense amount of weight. The idea that this colossal, terrifying ship could be a vessel of peace was difficult for many to comprehend. Murmurs spread through the crowd as the representatives tried to process this information. Finally, Varric spoke again. "The humans have requested a meeting. They have invited us to board their ship to discuss peaceful relations." The room erupted in shocked whispers. The idea of stepping aboard that monstrous ship filled many with dread. What if it was a trap? What if the humans had hostile intentions? The ship's size and power were enough to intimidate even the bravest among them. "We cannot ignore this invitation," Varric continued, his tone calm but firm. "This could be an opportunity to establish a relationship with a species that possesses technology and power beyond anything we have encountered. We must approach this with caution, but we cannot let fear dictate our actions." A representative from the Organi species, known for their cautious nature, stood up. "How can we be sure that the humans truly come in peace? Their ship is a war machine, not a diplomatic vessel. We risk everything by accepting this invitation." Varric nodded, understanding the concerns. "We will take all necessary precautions. A team of our most skilled diplomats and security personnel will board the ship. They will be equipped with the latest technology to protect themselves in case of any hostility." The debate continued for some time, but in the end, the council agreed to accept the humans' invitation. It was a risky decision, but the potential rewards were too great to ignore. The possibility of a new ally, especially one with the power of the humans, was something the council couldn't pass up. The selected team of diplomats was a diverse group, chosen for their experience in first contact situations. They were accompanied by a small group of elite soldiers, each equipped with advanced defensive gear. The soldiers were discreet but ready for anything, their presence a silent reminder that the council was not taking any chances. As the shuttle carrying the diplomatic team approached the human ship, the tension inside was thick. The diplomats exchanged nervous glances, their minds racing with questions. What would the humans be like? Would they be as fearsome as their ship suggested, or were they truly peaceful explorers? The unknowns were overwhelming, but they had a mission to fulfill. The human ship loomed larger and larger as they neared it. Up close, the scars on its hull were even more pronounced, telling stories of battles fought in distant corners of the universe. The ship's exterior was intimidating, a fortress in space that seemed impenetrable. Yet, as the shuttle docked, the humans provided clear instructions, guiding them to a landing bay with a precision that suggested familiarity with such operations. The shuttle landed with a soft thud inside the ship's massive docking bay. The bay was dimly lit, casting long shadows that only added to the eerie atmosphere. The walls were made of some dark, metallic material that absorbed light, giving the entire area a foreboding feel. The diplomats took a deep breath, trying to steady their nerves as the shuttle doors opened. Standing at the entrance to the bay was a group of humans, dressed in simple yet functional uniforms. The leader stepped forward, a tall figure with sharp features and a calm expression. His eyes, however, betrayed a deep intelligence, assessing the alien visitors with keen interest. "Welcome aboard," the human leader said in a clear, steady voice. "I am Captain Elias Morgan. We appreciate your willingness to meet with us." The diplomats exchanged quick glances, surprised by the captain's straightforwardness. His tone was polite, but there was an underlying strength that suggested he was not someone to be underestimated. "Thank you, Captain Morgan," replied Ambassador Tuval, a seasoned diplomat from the Calirian species. Tuval was known for her composure, but even she seemed slightly unsettled by the imposing environment. "We are here to discuss peaceful relations between our people." Captain Morgan nodded, his expression remaining neutral. "We understand. Please, follow me. We have prepared a meeting room where we can speak in more comfortable surroundings." The group followed Captain Morgan through the ship's corridors. The interior of the ship was just as imposing as its exterior, with high ceilings and long, shadowy passageways. The walls were adorned with strange, glowing symbols, and the air was filled with a low, almost imperceptible hum, as if the ship itself was alive. Despite the intimidating atmosphere, the humans remained courteous and professional, guiding the diplomats with ease. It was clear that they were taking this meeting seriously, but there was still an air of mystery surrounding them. What were their true intentions? Were they really here to make peace, or was there something more? As they reached the meeting room, the tension in the air was palpable. The room was stark and minimalist, with a large table at the center. The humans took their seats, and Captain Morgan gestured for the diplomats to do the same. "Let's begin," Captain Morgan said, his voice calm but firm. "We have much to discuss." And so, the meeting that could change the fate of the galaxy began, with both sides unsure of what the future would hold. The shocking discovery. The meeting room aboard the human ship was cold and unwelcoming, its metallic surfaces reflecting the harsh lighting. The Galactic Council diplomats, seated around the large table, felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. Captain Elias Morgan sat at the head of the table, his expression calm but unreadable. For the first few minutes, the conversation was formal and cautious. The humans explained their arrival in neutral terms, avoiding any mention of their ship's intimidating presence. The council representatives listened carefully, their minds racing with questions. The humans seemed sincere, but there was an underlying tension in the room that couldn't be ignored. Then, just as the conversation was beginning to ease, something unexpected happened. A low, distant rumble echoed through the ship, making the walls vibrate slightly. The diplomats exchanged nervous glances, their unease growing. "What was that?" Ambassador Taval asked, her voice steady, but with a hint of concern. Captain Morgan hesitated for a moment, then stood up. "I believe it's best if I show you," he said, his tone firm. "Please, follow me." The diplomats rose from their seats, unsure of what to expect. The tension in the room was now palpable, every step they took filled with uncertainty. Captain Morgan led them out of the meeting room and down a long, dimly lit corridor. The walls here were different, covered in strange, intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with energy. As they walked, the diplomats couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. The air felt heavier, and the low hum that had filled the ship earlier was growing louder. It was as if the ship itself was alive, its energy pulsing through the walls and floors. Finally, they'd reached a large door at the end of the corridor. It was massive, made of a dark, unknown metal, and it emitted a soft, ominous glow. Captain Morgan paused before the door, his hand hovering over the control panel. "What you're about to see is classified," he said, his voice serious. "But given the circumstances, I believe it's important that you understand the full picture." Before anyone could respond, Captain Morgan activated the door. It slid open with a low hiss, revealing a large chamber bathed in dim, eerie light. The diplomats stepped inside cautiously, their eyes widening at the sight before them. In the center of the room was a massive containment unit, surrounded by thick, reinforced glass. Inside the unit was something that none of them had expected, a creature, unlike anything they had ever seen. It was enormous, with dark, scaly skin and glowing red eyes that seemed to burn with an otherworldly fire. Its body was covered in what looked like deep, ancient scars, and its sharp claws scraped against the walls of its prison with a slow, menacing rhythm. The creature was alive, but barely. It was breathing heavily, its massive chest rising and falling with labored breaths. Its eyes flicked to the diplomats as they entered the room, and a low, guttural growl rumbled through the chamber. "What? What is that?" One of the diplomats whispered, horror evident in his voice. "This," Captain Morgan said, his voice grim, "is a Xaldar, a species long thought to be extinct. They were the scourge of the galaxy centuries ago, feared by all for their unparalleled strength and viciousness. This one attacked our ship during our journey. We managed to subdue it, but not without great cost." The room fell silent as the diplomats processed this information. The Xaldar were the stuff of legends, stories told to frighten younglings into behaving. To see one in real life, trapped and weakened, was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. But why keep it alive? Ambassador Taval asked, her voice shaking slightly. Captain Morgan turned to face her, his expression serious. "Because it holds information that could be vital to all of us. The Xaldar were thought to be extinct, but clearly that's not the case. We need to understand where it came from, and whether there are more out there." The gravity of the situation began to sink in. If the Xaldar were returning, it could spell disaster for the entire galaxy. The humans had taken a huge risk in capturing this creature, but it was clear that they understood the stakes. They had come to the Galactic Council not just to make peace, but to warn them of a looming threat. "We believe there are more," Captain Morgan continued, his tone somber. "Our ship picked up faint signals matching the Xaldar's energy signature. We haven't been able to track them, but they're out there, hiding in the shadows." The diplomats exchanged uneasy glances. The idea of the Xaldar returning was terrifying, but the fact that the humans had already encountered one, and survived, was even more unsettling. It meant that humanity had faced this ancient terror and lived to tell the tale, something that many species in the galaxy would have deemed impossible. "We have to work together," Captain Morgan said, his voice firm. "The Xaldar are a threat to all of us. If we don't stand united, we won't stand at all. The room was silent as the diplomats absorbed the weight of his words. This discovery changed everything. The arrival of the human ship was no longer just a curiosity, it was a lifeline. The galaxy was facing a threat that had been forgotten for centuries, and humanity had brought the warning. Ambassador Taval stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. We will bring this to the Council immediately. The galaxy must be prepared for what's coming. Captain Morgan nodded, his expression resolute. We don't have much time. The Xaldar won't wait. As the diplomats turned to leave, the creature let out another low growl, its glowing eyes watching them closely. The sight of it sent chills down their spines, a reminder of the darkness that was now looming over the galaxy. The discovery of the Xaldar had changed everything. The galaxy was no longer just dealing with a new species. They were facing the return of an ancient terror. And the only hope of survival lay in an alliance that had begun with a monstrous ship and a shocking discovery. The first test. The Galactic Council's emergency meeting room was buzzing with activity. The discovery of the Xaldar had sent shockwaves through the ranks of the Council, and the urgency in the air was palpable. Ambassadors from various species were locked in heated discussions, their voices rising as they debated the best course of action. In the middle of the room, a large holographic display showed the galaxy with several red dots scattered across it, possible locations of other Xaldar. The sight of it was enough to make even the most seasoned diplomats uneasy. Captain Elias Morgan stood to one side, observing the chaos with a calm demeanor. He had done what he came to do, warn the galaxy of the looming threat. Now, it was up to the Council to decide their next move. But as he listened to the arguments, he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Finally, the Council leader, a tall, slender being with silvery skin, named Chancellor Relvok, raised a hand for silence. The room quieted almost immediately, all eyes turning to him. We have heard the warnings. Chancellor Relvok began, his voice echoing through the chamber. And we acknowledge the danger that the Xaldar represent. But before we commit our forces to this fight, we must be certain of the threat. We propose a test, a mission to one of the suspected Xaldar locations to confirm their presence. If the humans are correct, we will join forces to eliminate this menace. If not, he let the sentence hang in the air, but everyone knew what he meant. If the Xaldar weren't a real threat, the Council wouldn't risk their resources on what could be a wild goose chase. Captain Morgan stepped forward, his expression serious. We're willing to lead this mission. The Xaldar attacked our ship first. We know what we're up against. Chancellor Relvok nodded. Very well. You will be accompanied by a representative from the Council to ensure that the mission is carried out with full transparency. A murmur of agreement spread through the room, and a tall, blue-skinned ambassador from the Vetheri species stepped forward. I will go, she said, her voice calm and composed. I am Ambassador Kira, and I will represent the Council on this mission. Captain Morgan nodded in acknowledgement. We leave immediately. Every moment counts. The mission team assembled quickly, boarding a sleek, fast ship designed for reconnaissance and quick strikes. The ship was small but heavily armed, ready for whatever they might encounter. As they prepared for departure, there was a tense silence among the crew, a shared understanding that this mission could be their first and last encounter with the Xaldar. Ambassador Kira took her place beside Captain Morgan on the bridge, her eyes focused on the starry expanse outside the viewport. You've faced these creatures before, she said, breaking the silence. What should we expect? Captain Morgan didn't hesitate. They're fast, strong, and relentless. The one we captured was injured, but it still took everything we had to bring it down. If there are more out there, they won't go down easily. Ambassador Kira nodded, her expression unreadable. Then we must be prepared for the worst. The ship's engines roared to life, and within moments, they were hurtling through space toward the nearest red dot on the holographic map. The tension on the bridge was thick, every crew member on high alert as they neared their destination. As they approached the suspected Xaldar location, the ship's sensors began to pick up strange readings, energy signatures that didn't match anything on record. Captain Morgan's eyes narrowed as he studied the data. "That's them," he muttered. "It has to be." The ship dropped out of hyperspace, and the view on the main screen shifted to reveal a barren, desolate planet. It was covered in dark, jagged mountains and deep craters, a place that seemed devoid of life. But the energy readings were unmistakable. Something was down there. "Prepare for a ground mission," Captain Morgan ordered. "We need to get eyes on whatever's generating those readings." Ambassador Kira nodded and joined the ground team as they suited up. The atmosphere on the planet was thin and toxic, requiring full environmental suits. The team's faces were hidden behind reflective visors, their movements swift and purposeful as they boarded the landing shuttle. The descent to the planet's surface was smooth, the shuttle touching down on a flat, rocky plain. The ground team disembarked quickly, spreading out to secure the area. The energy readings were stronger now, pulsing from a nearby cave system that wound deep into the planet's crust. Captain Morgan led the way, his weapon at the ready as they approached the cave entrance. The air was thick with tension, every sound amplified in the stillness of the barren landscape. As they entered the cave, the darkness closed in around them, the only light coming from their suit lamps. They moved cautiously, deeper and deeper into the cave, following the energy readings. The deeper they went, the stronger the sense of foreboding became. It was as if the cave itself was alive, watching their every move. Finally, they'd reached a large chamber at the heart of the cave. The energy readings were off the charts now, the air humming with power. In the center of the chamber was something that made every member of the team freeze in their tracks. It was another Xaldar, but this one was different. It was larger, more menacing, and it wasn't alone. Surrounding it were several smaller creatures, all with the same dark, scaly skin and glowing red eyes. They were huddled together, as if in deep slumber, but the power radiating from them was unmistakable. Ambassador Kira's voice broke the stunned silence. "This is worse than we feared. If they wake up..." Captain Morgan tightened his grip on his weapon, his mind racing. They had found the Xaldar, and it was clear that they were preparing for something big. The test was over. The threat was real. "Get the data we need," Captain Morgan ordered, his voice low and urgent. "We have to warn the Council. The Xaldar are back, and they're not alone." As the team began collecting data, the realization settled over them. This was only the beginning. The first test had revealed the truth, and the galaxy was about to face a threat like never before. The Council's dilemma. Back on the Galactic Council's homeworld, the atmosphere in the central chamber was thick with unease. The Council had reconvened immediately after receiving Captain Morgan's report. The news of the Xaldar's confirmed presence had thrown the entire assembly into disarray. Now they faced a decision that could determine the fate of countless worlds. Chancellor Ralvok stood at the center of the circular chamber, surrounded by the Council's delegates, each one representing a different species, each one carrying the weight of their respective worlds. The holographic image of the Xaldar, captured by Captain Morgan's team, floated ominously above the Council, casting a dark shadow over the room. The image was disturbing. The creatures were more formidable than anyone had imagined, and the fact that there were more of them, larger and seemingly more powerful, was a terrifying realization. The Council members exchanged nervous glances, their faces betraying the fear they all felt. "We cannot ignore this threat," Ambassador Kira said, breaking the silence. She had returned from the mission with a heavy heart, fully aware of the gravity of the situation. "The Xaldar are not just a danger to Earth, they are a danger to us all. We must act, and we must act quickly." Chancellor Ralvok nodded solemnly. "We are aware of the threat, Ambassador, but committing to a full-scale war against an enemy we know so little about is not a decision we can make lightly. We must consider the consequences. What if we provoke them further? What if they are more numerous than we suspect? A grizzled ambassador from the warlike Zarthan species, known for their aggressive nature, slammed a fist on the table, provoking them. They've already shown their intent. They attacked the humans without warning. The time for talk is over. We must strike before they have a chance to spread. A murmur of agreement spread through the chamber, but it was clear that not everyone was convinced. A representative from the peaceful Elvira species, known for their wisdom and diplomacy, spoke up next. But at what cost? War is never the answer. We must explore all options before resorting to violence. Perhaps we can negotiate, find common ground. Negotiate. The Zarthan ambassador interrupted with a snort. These are monsters, not diplomats. You can't reason with them. The only thing they understand is strength. The room erupted into heated debate, the voices of the delegates clashing as they argued back and forth. Some advocated for immediate military action, while others urged caution, warning against rushing into a conflict that could devastate the galaxy. Chancellor Ralvok listened carefully, weighing each argument with the burden of leadership heavy on his shoulders. The stakes were higher than they had ever been, and whatever decision they made, it would have far-reaching consequences. As the debate raged on, Captain Morgan, who had been standing quietly to the side, finally stepped forward. His voice was calm, but there was a steely resolve in his eyes. With all due respect, council members, time is not on our side. The Xaldar are already preparing for something. We don't know what, but it won't be good. We've seen what they're capable of, and if we hesitate now, we might lose our only chance to stop them. The room fell silent as the delegates turned their attention to the human captain. There was something about the way he spoke, a quiet confidence born from experience, that made them pause. What do you propose, Captain? Chancellor Ralvok asked, his tone thoughtful. We need to unite, Captain Morgan replied firmly. This isn't just Earth's fight. It's a fight for every species in this galaxy. We should form a coalition, a united front that can stand against the Xaldar. If we pool our resources, our knowledge, and our strengths, we have a chance. But we need to act now, before it's too late. The idea of a united coalition was not new, but it had never been fully realized. The various species of the galaxy had always been too different, too divided by their own interests and histories. But now, faced with a common enemy, the idea began to take root. Chancellor Ralvok looked around the chamber, gauging the reactions of the delegates. There was still fear, still uncertainty, but there was also a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, this was the moment the galaxy could come together. We will vote, Chancellor Ralvok declared, his voice steady. But know this, whatever decision we make, we must stand by it, united. If we choose to fight, we fight as one. If we choose another path, we walk it together. The survival of our worlds depends on our unity. The delegates nodded in agreement, their faces set with determination. The time for debate was over. Now, they would decide. As the vote began, Captain Morgan watched in silence. He knew the stakes better than anyone. This was more than just a decision. It was the galaxy's last chance to stand against the darkness. Whatever the outcome, he was ready to do whatever it took to protect his world, and the countless others that now looked to him for leadership. The votes were cast, the decision made. The council had chosen a path, and now, there was no turning back. The fate of the galaxy rested in their hands. The new alliance, the Galactic Council's decision had been made. A united front was the only hope against the growing threat of the Xaldar. Now, the challenge was to bring together the diverse and often conflicting species of the galaxy into a single, cohesive force. It was a daunting task, but one that had to be accomplished. Captain Morgan stood in the heart of the newly established command center, a vast space buzzing with activity. Representatives from various species filled the room, each one a testament to the galaxy's diversity. There were the tall, slender Elvira with their blue-tinted skin and graceful movements. The short, stocky Zarthans, bristling with energy and eagerness for battle, and the Tainari, whose translucent bodies shimmered with every movement, reflecting their emotions like living prisms. Despite their differences, they were all here for a single purpose: to form an alliance that could stand against the Exaldar. A massive holographic display dominated the center of the room, showing the latest intelligence on the Exaldar fleet. The ships were numerous and heavily armed, a dark cloud hovering on the edges of known space, ready to descend at any moment. The sight of it filled the room with a tense silence, a constant reminder of what they were up against. Captain Morgan addressed the assembled leaders. "We all know what's at stake here. The Exaldar are not just a threat to one world, but to all of us. We've seen what they're capable of, and we know they won't stop until they've conquered or destroyed everything in their path. The time for individual actions is over. We must work together if we're to have any chance of survival." Ambassador Kira, representing the Elvira, nodded in agreement. "The Elvira have always valued peace and diplomacy, but even we understand that there are times when we must fight to protect what we hold dear. We stand with you, Captain, and we will contribute our ships and technology to the cause." The Zarthan ambassador, still brimming with barely contained energy, slammed his fist on the table. "The Zarthan live for battle. We've been waiting for this chance, and we'll fight to the last breath. Our warriors are ready, Captain. Just point us in the right direction." The Tainari representative, their form shimmering with nervous energy, spoke next. "Our strength is not in direct combat, but in our ability to adapt and learn. We will provide intelligence and support, using our unique skills to assist wherever we can." One by one, the other representatives pledged their support, each species offering what they could to the Alliance. Ships, weapons, technology, and soldiers, all were committed to the cause. It was a moment of unprecedented unity, a moment that history would remember as the beginning of the new alliance. As the leaders finalized their agreements, Captain Morgan took a moment to observe the room. This alliance was something that had never been attempted before, a union of species that had, for the most part, kept to themselves or engaged in petty disputes. But now, with the threat of the Exaldar looming, those differences seemed insignificant. It was clear to everyone present that their survival depended on working together. Captain Morgan's mind raced with the logistics of what needed to happen next. The alliance was formed, but now it needed to be organized, coordinated, and led into battle. They would need a strategy that played to each species' strengths while compensating for their weaknesses. It would be no easy task, but Morgan had never been one to shy away from a challenge. "We need a plan," Morgan said, addressing the room. "The Exaldar are powerful, but they're not invincible. We have the advantage of numbers, and we have the element of surprise. If we strike first, and if we strike hard, we can disrupt their plans and weaken their forces before they have a chance to respond." A Zarthan tactician stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Our scouts have identified a weakness in their formation, a gap in their defensive perimeter that we can exploit. If we concentrate our forces there, we can break through and hit them where it hurts." The Elvira ambassador added, "And while the main force engages, our ships can use their advanced cloaking technology to slip behind enemy lines and sabotage their command structure. Without leadership, the Exaldar will be thrown into chaos." The plan began to take shape, each species contributing their unique abilities and perspectives. It was a true collaboration, a melding of minds and cultures that had never been seen before. And as the details were hammered out, there was a growing sense of hope in the room. For the first time, it seemed that they might actually stand a chance. Captain Morgan looked around at the faces of his new allies. They were still wary of each other, still uncertain about what the future held, but they were united by a common goal. The new alliance was more than just a coalition of forces. It was a symbol of what the galaxy could achieve when it worked together. The Exaldar had underestimated them, thinking they could pick off worlds one by one without facing any real resistance. But now, they would face the combined might of the galaxy's most powerful species. The thought brought a grim smile to Morgan's face. The battle ahead would be fierce, but with the new alliance behind him, he was ready to face whatever came next. The unknown frontier. The new alliance was ready. After weeks of preparation and coordination, the combined forces of the galaxy were set to face the Exaldar. The time had come to leave the safety of their known territories and venture into the heart of enemy space, a region marked as the unknown frontier. It was a place of great danger and even greater uncertainty. Captain Morgan stood on the bridge of the newly assembled flagship, Unity, a symbol of the new alliance. The ship was a blend of technology from all the allied species, sleek Elvira stealth systems, Zarthan weaponry, and Tinari adaptive shielding. It was a formidable vessel, designed for both offense and defense, ready to lead the charge into the unknown. The view from the bridge was both breathtaking and intimidating. Stars and planets stretched out in every direction, and ahead of them lay the dark, foreboding expanse of the frontier. The Exaldar had fortified their territory, making it a treacherous journey, but the Alliance was determined. They had a plan, and they were going to see it through. "Prepare for jump to the frontier coordinates," Morgan ordered, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "Preparing for jump sequence," replied Lieutenant Aisha, her fingers dancing over the controls. The crew was a mix of different species, all working together seamlessly. Each person had a specific role, and everyone knew the importance of their mission. As the countdown began, the room was filled with the soft hum of machinery and the low buzz of nervous chatter. Each member of the crew was acutely aware of the risks involved. They were about to step into a realm that had been untouched by outsiders for years, a realm controlled by the Exaldar. "Jump in 3, 2, 1. Now," Lieutenant Aisha called out, and the stars outside the viewports stretched and twisted as the ship slipped into hyperspace. The transition was quick, and when the Unity emerged from hyperspace, they were met with a sight that took everyone's breath away. The frontier was even more alien than they had imagined. Strange nebula glowed in eerie colors, and colossal asteroids drifted lazily through space, their surfaces etched with unknown markings. "Stay sharp," Morgan instructed as the crew adjusted to their new surroundings. "We're entering uncharted territory. Scan for any signs of Exaldar activity." The scanners beeped as they picked up faint signals in the distance. It wasn't much, but it was enough to confirm that they were on the right track. The Exaldar were here, and their presence was palpable even before they could be seen. As they ventured deeper into the frontier, the crew encountered numerous challenges. Asteroid fields that seemed to stretch on forever, gravitational anomalies that threatened to pull them off course, and strange, unexplained phenomena that defied their understanding of space. Every step was a test, and every moment was filled with uncertainty. "It's like navigating through a minefield," commented Commander Excel, the Zarthan tactician, his eyes scanning the readouts on his console. "We need to be careful. One wrong move could be disastrous." The tension on the bridge was thick, but there was also a sense of determination. The crew knew that the risks were high, but so were the stakes. They were not just exploring new space. They were marching into the heart of an enemy stronghold. Suddenly, a blaring alarm broke the tense silence. "We've detected incoming vessels," Lieutenant Aisha announced, her voice laced with urgency. "Exaldar ships, closing in fast." The crew sprang into action. The previously calm bridge erupted into a flurry of activity as the various systems were activated. The Unity's shields powered up, and weapons were primed. The Alliance had prepared for this moment, and now it was time to put their training into practice. "Brace for impact," Captain Morgan shouted, gripping the edge of his command chair. The Exaldar ships emerged from the darkness, their menacing forms quickly filling the viewports. They were massive and formidable, their weapons charged and ready. The first salvo of plasma bolts erupted from the Exaldar ships, and the Unity rocked under the assault. The ship's shields flared brightly, absorbing the impact and holding steady. The Alliance ships, positioned around the Unity, responded with their own fire, creating a dazzling display of energy and light as they engaged the enemy. "Return fire," Morgan ordered. The combined firepower of the Alliance ships hammered into the Saldar vessels, creating a chaotic battle in the cold void of space. The Unity maneuvered deftly, avoiding the worst of the enemy's fire while delivering powerful strikes of its own. Despite the intensity of the battle, there was a sense of coordination and unity among the Allied forces. Each ship played its role, complementing the others and working together to push back the Saldar. The battle was fierce, but the Alliance's determination was unwavering. As the skirmish continued, Captain Morgan focused on the larger picture. The Saldar were formidable, but they were not invincible. The Alliance had come prepared, and they were proving their strength. This battle was only the beginning, but it was a crucial step in the fight for the galaxy's survival. "Keep up the pressure," Morgan commanded. "We've come too far to back down now. We need to push through and secure our position." With a final, coordinated assault, the Alliance forces drove the Saldar back, pushing them out of their immediate area. The battle was over for now, but the frontier was still fraught with danger. They had made it into the heart of enemy space, and a real challenge lay ahead. Captain Morgan took a deep breath, looking out at the strange and beautiful landscape of the unknown frontier. They had faced their first test and come out victorious, but there was much more to come. The battle was far from over, and the fight for the galaxy's future had only just begun.